Welcome to Shelf Life, the monthly series where I look at games I covered about 6 or 7 months ago and let you know whether they're still in my collection. Today I'm looking at games I covered in November of 2023, and it was the odd month where I had no crowdfunding games, so everything's up for grabs. Let's see which games had shelf life. So our first showdown is between Gardeners, Journeys in Middle-earth, Resist, and John Company 2nd Edition versus Gardeners, a cooperative deduction game with a solo mode. You have these rule cards that you have to kind of match and give the other players clues about by putting down the tiles in certain ways, and it's real time. You try to solve as many as you can. I thought it was fine. There are other deduction games that I like better. I don't know, Paint the Roses, Letter Jam, to just name a few. So it didn't have a permanent place in my collection, but that's not because of anything wrong with the game. I think it worked very well. It's just cooperative deduction is actually starting to get a bit crowded, and I'm glad about that. It's a great variety of game for me. Next is Journeys in Middle-earth, which is an app-enabled game from Fantasy Flight, cooperative or solo, where you're controlling different characters from Middle-earth. I did what was the playthrough? It was like the Poison Promise DLC expansion that went with the Gathering War expansion, I want to say. But yeah, so at this point they have a ton of expansions for this one, but I think also the line is done, so you can actually get everything and know that you're not going to miss any more. I continue to enjoy the card play of this one, where you're drawing cards for their successes and failures, for your skill tests, but then you get to keep the cards and prep them for future turns to give you bonuses and things. But I also still feel like the scenario design is sometimes a little bit hit or miss. The campaigns are longer than I wish they would be. This is Peter's game, so he's keeping it. But if it was mine, I probably would cull it. So I'm going to call it a call. That's confusing overall. Then third in this first group of four is Resist with an exclamation point. This is a crowdfunding one I covered. It's a solo-only kind of World War II, well, I guess a Spanish Civil War themed game, card game where you're trying to go on these missions by keeping your people either hidden or revealed. But if you reveal them, they get called out of your deck. So, lots of culling. I already enjoy that. The big thing with this one is, yes, it's definitely a keep right now. I love this game. It was one of my favorite games of last year. But Witchcraft, which is by the same design team and has the same system, but changes the theme to sort of a more fantastical one with witches and changes up how you win the game and changes up the difficulty a little bit. I like that one even more. So this is a keep for now. But once Witchcraft pledges deliver, which should be pretty quick because that game is done and ready to go. They were just waiting for the crowdfunding campaign to finish. Once Witchcraft delivers, Resist will definitely get traded or given away or something to somebody else. So absolutely love this one. It's just Witchcraft, for my taste, is just a little bit better. But this is still the keep of the group, which means that John Company 2nd Edition is another call, since there's only one for each group I'm keeping. This one I've said before, I think it is genius, this absolute genius, how Ricky Royal, designing a solo mode for this one, got a intense negotiation game to work beautifully for solo. But that beauty is marred by the fact that you need to be checking a really large solo reference book over and over again every turn, because every phase of the game has different preferences and ways you can spend money and all these kind of things. So yeah, it's already a complicated game. The solo makes it even more complicated. I still really enjoyed it, not as much as PAX Pamir, which is from the same company and also designed the solo mode, also designed by Ricky Royal. But I still really like this one. However, my competitive group didn't like it that much. And like I said, solo was a bit too much of a bear. So not a keep for me. Then our next group of keep or culls is Mythic Mischief, Spire's End, Hildegard, Frostpunk, and So Clover. So first is Mythic Mischief. This is a 1v1 competitive game mainly, where you're moving around this little library trying to get the other students on the other team to be caught by the headmaster. I think it's the headmaster or somebody, and sent it attention. So the theme is pretty fun. It's got cool, varied factions with different powers, like vampires, zombies, that kind of thing. And then it's got a solo mode that works pretty well. It's definitely not as interesting as the competitive play, and that's really where I was at. I didn't love the solo, but it worked fine. And the competitive was my main draw to the game. My son really enjoyed it. But we got a bunch of other games he enjoyed even more. We've been playing a lot of Small World and Summoner Wars 2nd Edition and other things recently. So this was the closest to a keep of the culled ones, but didn't quite make the cut. Next is Spire's End, Hildegard. And this one isn't going to take very long. I didn't like this game at all. I like Choose Your Own Adventures. I like narrative things. I think the art is beautiful. I thought this was way too railroaded. I thought the key combat mechanic was incredibly repetitive and boring and offered no choices for the player. and they just kind of overused it, especially near the end of the game. And I thought whether you survived or not was entirely, or not entirely, but mostly a question of luck. So I just did not enjoy this one much at all. I've heard the original Spire's End might be better for my taste, and I know a lot of people who do love this one, so this is just my opinion. But yeah, Spire's End Hildegard was, I called that as quickly as I could. Then we come to Frostpunk next in the group, and this one is an awesome game. Like, I don't really have any complaints about this one, except that it is huge, takes a long time to set up, and none of those things match my tastes these days as well, for things I keep. Like, I don't mind playing these big epic games, but the ones I keep around are the ones I'm going to be able to play solo kind of quickly, or play with my family. Frostpunk is definitely a little too rough for them. But I think it's a great game. It can be a little bit too challenging, and it can have some, sometimes for certain scenarios, I can feel like the strategies get a little derivative, like I'm going to tend to do similar things to survive. But I think the way they kind of married a story and crushing theme together, and tough kind of worker placement choices, and interesting like build up of your civilization, I think all that is great. So Frostpunk, awesome game, not staying in my collection though. Which means that my second keep for this month is So Clover, a light little party game. And man, I love this one. Is it as amazing as Just One or Codenames? I don't know. They're all kind of up there for me. I've brought this one to like play rehearsals and classes with my students, or just sat down and play with my kids, and everybody gets into it. Like, it's never fallen flat for a group. It works great every time. It's so quick to explain, so quick to play, and still like the guessing and the writing of clues is always challenging and interesting. So yeah, highest recommend for So Clover, right up there with the other ones I mentioned. If you just want a good like casual game you can bust out anywhere, it is awesome. So 2 games out of 8 kept, but I really enjoyed both of them. Let's see how many of you were stumped by the quiz and get to our voting results. So let's see how everybody did. In the first group, Resist was a very confident choice for almost everybody. 82% picked that as the one to keep. Journey's Middle Earth got 8%, which surprisingly was the next highest. John Company 2nd Edition got only 7%, and then Gardeners got a very small 3% voting that would keep that one. Meanwhile, Group 2 is a bit more mixed, so Clover barely got over that 50% mark with 51. Frostpunk was the next most popular choice with 20, Mythic Mischief with 19, and Spire's End got 10%, the lowest of the group. And we had around 50 people who got this all right. 3 of them, Jack, Scott, and Hannah, didn't want to be entered in the contest. And then the names in yellow are Patreon supporters with double entries. So I'm going to roll, a D6 and then a D8 to determine our winner. Here we go. The D6 is column, I think, 2, row 8, which is Andrew Purdon or Purdon. Andrew, you are our winner for this month. So I'll be sending you an email, but thanks everybody for entering. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.